no one knows this, but Sam's actually dealt with a lot of crazy unknowns in his life. He's been through some insane stuff where most people, or really anyone, didn't know the outcome of what was going to happen even the next day. What did you do to kind of keep yourself going in those moments in order to make life worth living in those moments, to find the joy, to make sure that while you were taking care of your health, while you were taking care of your finances or your mental capacities, you were also taking care of that soul, the heart, filling that joy quota? What were some of I feel like that's such a crazy story that you have. It'd be awesome to know some of the stuff you did.
Yeah, so I had some health issues where they had to take out my intestines, and unfortunately, none of the procedures that I went through went like according to plan. So I was told I would need 2 surgeries to take out my intestines, and then I would be okay. And every single one of them went wrong in some way. And I stopped counting after 20 surgeries. I figure now I had somewhere near 50.
Jeez.
To get it all sorted out. And there were moments, I remember one moment where I had a surgery to take out my intestines. And the doctor came in and said something went wrong. But I had never seen this doctor before. And it through a series of administrative things and surgical things, my surgeon had dropped me after he realized that the surgery went wrong because he didn't want a fatality on his surgery record, right?
What?
Yeah, so
I do that?
Yeah, so I had a couple surgeries, and my surgeon who had done those realized that he had messed up. So he left the country that night. He was from India.
The country?
Yeah, he flew.
Wow.
So before I was awake from anesthesia, he had already booked a flight to go back to India to do like doctor work there so that he could drop me as his patient so that I didn't have, so that he didn't have a fatality on his record, right? So that his stats were better. And this guy walked in, it was like 2 a.m, and he said, hey, the other surgeries went wrong. We're going to do a surgery right now, and you're not going to make it. And so, at that time, I was 18. It was the first week of college, which is not how I wanted to start college. In my head, I was like, I've seen porn. College is all about like orgies and partying and drinking. This is going to be
dicks.
Great. Yeah. And my first week, I was in the hospital and I had gone through, by the end of the first week, I'd gone through about 20 surgeries. That's when I stopped counting.
Wow.
And so this guy walked in 2 a.m. and he said, hey, his exact words were, you have to make your peace with God. You have to make your peace with God.
Wow.
And you need to call who you need to call because it's over. And so that was the first time I ever wrote my will, and it was on a sticky note, right? I wrote my will. It was about 5 sticky notes long. It was short.
That's a decent amount of stuff for a college student, in all honesty.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it was writing things like tell my parents that I love them, that they couldn't have done a better job raising me, and that, like, regardless of what happens, they should feel proud. My friend at the time, he's still my friend now, Keenan is his name. I had willed him my computer because that week his computer had broken, and I had a working laptop, so I was like, okay, if I die, give Keenan my laptop, sell every single one of my other possessions to pay for the funeral, and then I talked about what I wanted to do in the funeral and stuff. And so I wrote my will at that time for the first time and gave it to my nurses to give to my parents in the chance that I died. And the surgeon said that I had, like a 5% chance of making it through this, that it was over. And they put me on this metal gurney, and they took me into the operating room, and then they started. And they cut out my intestines without anesthetic because all the anesthesiologists were in like different emergency surgery cases.
Whoa.
So they just started. And so I passed out about the time they took out my intestines. When I saw them pulling it out,
Whoa.
I passed out because I was like, okay, I'm going to check out of this. We all expected that I was going
crazy.
to, die. And there were moments in that where you're thinking to yourself, like, you have all kinds of crazy thoughts where you're like, do I regret anything that I've done in my life? Or do I have these moments where I think I could have been a better person? Or, what could I do to be better or more truly who I am? How can I be who I am? And it was unbelievable. At the time, very difficult, right? It was, I thought it was very tragic. I was 18 and it was an amount of brutality that I'd never experienced before, right? But afterwards, it totally changed who I was. Like at that time, I was 18. I had been accepted to the University of Denver. I was studying philosophy and creative writing, and I just like that was my jam. I really liked thinking about things, and I really liked writing poetry, and that's what I wanted to do. And I went through this experience, and coming out the other side, I woke up after the surgery, which was, like 9 hours long. I woke up and there was like a moment of reflection of like this absolute truth where you think, okay, there's who I am and there's who I want to be, right? And those might not be in the same space, right? It might be left hand and right hand, and they don't quite perfectly line up. And I was able to kind of, in a very bare, open, kind of raw space, be real with myself, because none of us expected that I would wake up from it. The doctors had told my parents that I was going to die.
That's crazy.
I had called everybody that I needed to call and said my goodbyes. And coming out the other side, being alive and thinking, okay, I have a life to live, only this one, which is so fragile. I'd never realized how close you are constantly to death. That if you aren't going for the things that make you happy, if you aren't doing what you want to do, then there's no reason to do those things, right? Like in high school, I had this teacher who was unbelievable. He was my English teacher. He was the reason I started getting my degrees in philosophy and creative writing. And when I woke up from the surgery, I realized that I love those things, but they're not my greatest passion in life. Like I had been studying space since second grade. And there was this moment of clarity where I realized if I'm not studying this thing that's captivated me since I was in second grade, that I've always been passionate about, maybe I'm selling myself short, right? So I came out of the surgery and in the ICU, I was isolated, right? Because I was like a critical case. I couldn't have people come in to visit me because the germs of the people from the outside could infect me and kill me. It was a whole deal. So for about a month, I was in like essentially quarantine. And it gave me a lot of time without any externalities to be able to examine the life that I'd been living versus the life that I wanted to live, and then coming to some kind of agreement between the two. So I went back to school, 4 months after that had happened. And the first day back at school changed my degree over to astrophysics and began studying the things that I'd been passionate about all my life, but had maybe been too afraid to go for. And within a year and a half after that incident, I was working with NASA and the Hubble telescope and taking photos of space like had always been my dream. And just that moment of like you have these hardships, which at the time are almost insurmountable, right? There are these things that cut you to your core that dramatically change the way that you view yourself. That changed, it's a paradigm shift where you just everything that you'd ever been living for has been proven wrong. But there's a certain freedom in that where you realize, oh, you can do whatever you want. And in that moment, you can choose, okay, I want to do the things that make me happy, or I want to do the things that I feel like I should do for whoever,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And yeah. So
I feel like everybody owes it to themselves to almost die once. Like there's something so... Everyone I know that's had a near-death experience has almost, without using these words, described it as an actual life experience where they're like, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Yeah.
I now know where to pursue, what actually matters. I feel like there's something so valuable in that experience.
I
Or
think
totally or somebody close to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like-
I think near-death experiences should be called near-life experiences just because, like, if you're almost in a car accident, your thoughts are, like, about your family or your significant other or your kids if you have them.
All
you
the
know?
things that actually matter surface up real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
And it becomes
exactly.
Very
Yeah.
apparent where you've been focusing isn't where you are actually passionate, isn't what, just like what you're describing, our guest Brian Gavigan, same exact experience
Yeah.
where he had this crazy near-death experience, and all he could think was, I'm not where I should be, and it's no one's fault but my own.
Well, it definitely, those experiences, you know, they say you only live once, right? YOLO, right? It's like, that's wrong. You live every day. You only die once.
Yeah.
So if you live every day, I mean, every day should be about your living, right? Like whether it's pursuing the career you want or the person you want to be with or, you know, pursuing the person that you want to be. There's so much in those moments of crisis or those like near life experiences where it becomes clear that this is really what I want. And there were moments where after that operation, I had a line, I still have the scar in my arm. It was threaded through my artery into my heart, and that's how I ate for like 3 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, they would just
Science.
pump nutrients into my heart, and my heart would pump it through my body.
That's crazy.
And it was about 5 feet of tubing that they threaded through my body, through my arteries, into my heart. And when they took it out, I asked the doctor, can I do this? Because it was the last thing we had to do. I had taken out from my stomach surgeries, I had taken out all of the staples myself with like essentially a pair of pliers. I went to the doctor to make sure that it was like okay, and he said it's time for the staples to come out. And I was like, I want to do this. So I pulled out all of the staples, and the very last step was pulling this thing out of my heart. And so
no.
he went to start, and I said, you know, hey, can I do this? It's the very last thing we have to do before I'm like normal again. And if it's the last thing, I want to be the one to do it. And I was his first patient who had ever asked, can I do this myself? And he told me, yeah. So I sat inside of his examination room, and I pulled out the line from my heart. And like, they don't tell you, you don't have nerves inside of your arteries, right? There's no reason to. You have nerves on like the edges of your skin and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
But you don't have nerves inside of your body because there's no external stimuli, right? So when you pull something out of your heart, if it's threaded through your arteries, you don't feel a sensation like tactily, you feel pressure changes.
Weird.
Yeah. So when you pull something out of your heart, if it's threaded through your arteries, you feel the line bouncing around through the pressure changes. And it feels almost like if you descended from the mountains to sea level only in one part of your body.
That's
It's
crazy.
very strange. And so I asked him, you know, can I take this out? And he said yes. And so I pulled it out. And that moment was so powerful to me because it gave me power over the situation. I didn't have power over being dealt this card, right? Like these were diseases that were genetic that I had no control over. It wasn't like I'd been smoking too much and I got lung cancer, or like, something that I had done to myself. It was just something that happened to me. But that moment gave me the power to take control over it. And so when I pulled out these 5 feet of tubes out of my heart, and I could feel my heart pumping, right? Like, I mean, my heart was racing and I could feel these things being pulled out of my arteries. It gave me a certain power, right? To be like, you know what? I might not be able to control what happens to me, but I can control how I react. And I can control what happens after this, right? This can be something that destroys me or something that makes me better. And I decided, okay, this is going to make me better. So I yanked this thing out of my heart and I went back to school and I switched from philosophy and creative writing to astrophysics. And I started studying, and there were moments where I was like, this is so above me. This is so hard, and this is for people who are smarter than I am. But then I could remember, like, all right, well, 3 weeks ago, I pulled something out of my still beating heart. Like, I can do this. Like, if I can yank something out of my heart and still live through it, I can do this. I can do this homework. I can get this job. I can be with this person that I like. It gave me this strength to keep going. And I think that there's something to be said about that when these things happen to you that you might not have control over. Like, even if you're driving and you get T-boned and it's not your fault and you never saw it coming, there can be aspects of that that push who you are to the surface. It might have been hiding. You might have been working in an office job or something that you hate. And those moments, I think, give you so much strength to keep going, or to view things in a different way, or to feel like, you know what, I do have agency, I have power over these things.
Yeah, there's something so wonderful about taking ownership that you are 100% responsible of your own life's experience.
Yes, yeah,
like
exactly.
It doesn't matter what happens to you, it's how you react to what has happened that matters 100%, right? Like how you could have chosen to look at, like, my dad's never told me that he's proud of me, and he just told it to this dude he's never literally met ever, what is going on, versus being like, oh, clearly I can just shift how I'm thinking, and now you guys are close, right? So,
yeah. And there's an aspect to that is so powerful for the individual experiencing it. I mean, it changes everything about you when you see those truths laid bare on the table, right?
That's so crazy.
Like, there was a moment I was going through surgery. We had been in Mexico, my family and I. It was my mom and my dad and my grandparents and my girlfriend at the time. I'd gone through, however many surgeries it was. It was probably like 30 or 40 surgeries. And I was finally better. I was like, okay. And we talked to my doctor and said, hey, now that I'm better, my family and I, we want to go to Mexico for spring break and just kind of celebrate the fact that, like, I'm alive. I've still been doing my studies. Like, everything is finally okay. Everything's okay. Can we go to Mexico for this spring break? And my doctor said, yeah, sure, of course. And we went to Mexico, and on the first day we were there, my stomach felt upset. And we went to the ER to kind of get it checked out, right? And it turned out things had gone wrong inside of me. So I spent the next 6 months in Mexico undergoing, I couldn't even begin to say how many surgeries to get it all fixed. But there was one moment I had told the doctor, I feel bad. And the doctor ran some tests, and he came back and said, hey, this is what's going on. You need to have these same surgeries you've done 15 times before. You have to do them again because none of it worked. Like, your doctor who said you could go to Mexico, he was wrong. It's totally screwed. Like, we're starting from the beginning. And at that point,
so did going to Mexico,
was it like the flying and the pressure changes?
It was just that.
the
So
food, the
it was
burritos?
yeah.
So
Sorry.
the doctor
salsa.
who had done the surgeries, a few months before that, I had at that point about half of a small intestine, but no large intestine or anything else. When he put my intestines back inside of me, he had twisted them around, so they had choked off, and my insides had exploded. Okay,
That's never a good thing.
which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how did you not notice this?
Well,
This is
yeah,
awful.
They're
yeah,
wrinkly.
it's great.
Really awful.
Yeah, so the inside of me, the small intestine that was remaining had been twisted.
Basically
okay.
cholera?
Well, yeah, basically colic. So the intestine had been twisted, which made the opening smaller, and then at the opening, scar tissue started to build up because it had been cut into so many times. That over a few months, the scar tissue kept building up until there was no opening left.
Wow.
And then I just exploded on the inside, right? And my doctor had told me that this is all in Spanish, and I told
Thank
him.
God for Spanish apps on your
Yeah.
phone. Learn
Yeah.
that Spanish quick. Otherwise, you've been screwed.
Yeah, he's in the hospital on Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, using Google Translate, he's like, "What do you want a donkey here? This is really weird." Luckily for me, I spoke Spanish pretty well, pretty fluently at that time, and he told me all of this, and I was like 20, 21. And I was like, it's not worth it to go through this again. This has been 3 or 4 years of just agony. And at that point, I was like, I have no regrets. And I told him, don't do the surgery, let me die. And he said, okay. And so like 2 months after that, they go to do the surgery. And they wheel me into the surgery room. And I haven't heard...
Because you just wouldn't die. So you're...
Well, I told him, let me die. If you need to do anything, take me into the operating room. Relieve the pressure so I don't explode, because that'll be gross.
Yeah.
It'll smell bad. People will
No
be
one wants
upset.
that, yeah.
Yeah. If I'm chilling in my hospital room and then I just explode, it's gonna be gross.
Inconvenient.
Yeah.
It's gonna be inconvenient. The janitors are gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one
so-
wants to limpy that.
Yeah,
No one wants to
exactly,
Olympia.
exactly.
The teddy bears that they
Yeah.
brought you to cover and you can't donate them.
So for 2 months, I went through these surgeries that were just to relieve the pressure to make sure I didn't explode and to clean up the septic stuff inside of me. And after about 2 months, they were like, we're going to take you in. We're going to do one final surgery to relieve the pressure and stop this all from happening. And then you will die, right? You'll go through the surgery, you'll come out, you'll go into like a hospice room, and you will slowly pass away and die. And so I heard all of that. Again, all in Spanish. And I called everybody that I wanted to say goodbye to.
Wait, that does say something about their healthcare system, that they were going to do that surgery anyway?
Well, they were like...
Knowing that,
Yeah.
that you were going to die anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like some hospitals and stuff just wouldn't...
Yeah, I don't think the American healthcare
if they knew
system
you were going to
would have
die,
done
they would just be like, oh, fuck off.
He's just going to die.
Yeah, well,
It
just
doesn't
load
matter
just-
about
Even
how much
Mexico,
pain.
where they want to build this fucking wall. They're like,
Yeah.
we're going to at least make you not explode in the goddamn hospital room.
Yeah,
We're gonna make it as nice for you as possible and as peaceful versus.
Yeah.
We're not even gonna touch how broken the healthcare system is.
Don't get
we'll
me
all
started.
Get angry, yeah.
And so they were going to do this surgery, which was going to relieve some of my pain. And then I would come out into a hospice room and I would slowly fade away into memory, right? And I was fully aware that that is what was going to happen, right? I had called my friends and I had said my goodbyes. I had sent letters to people. Again, I wrote my will. And I was ready, right? Ready to go. There was nothing left, right? Every loose end was tied up, Every ex-girlfriend that was still mad at me, I had talked to everyone. And my life
That's
was...
kind of a cheap move on the
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, I am dying, so
peace out.
I guess you can be angry. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a laptop. I'll give my best friend my laptop.
Yeah, exactly. Keenan actually still had my laptop. I was like, if, like I know I'm going to die, my laptop was willed to Keenan still because I didn't die before.
True story. I've ended up with that laptop.
You have that laptop.
Keenan have?
Keenan has nothing.
No. I used that laptop to drop my phone off at the Sprint store today.
Yep. Yeah, I saw it last time I was at your house. I saw that laptop. I was like, this has been through a lot.
One. Yeah.
And
I'm actually devastated by that. Keenan does not have that laptop.
I think he has one.
He probably
now.
has a much nicer laptop.
I have no idea. He and I don't talk about what kind of laptop he has nowadays.
Back on track.
So we went into the operating room, and I knew I was going to die. I had accepted it, right? At this point, I hadn't heard English for 2 or 3 months, and I was alone in Mexico going through all of this. And they played Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. It was the first time I'd heard English in months.
Whoa.
Yeah, Wish You Were Here. And the whole time, I wasn't thinking about the things that I wished I had done or how I could have treated people better. It was just about, like, wanting to be close to the people close to me, right? And, like, I was really close with some of these people. Like, I had a catheter for, like, 2 or 3 months up until this point. And I had sent some of my friends photos of the catheter because it was like, look at how ridiculous this shit is, And you're close friends with someone when you send them, like, an unsolicited dick pic and they're like, yeah, dude, that looks hard.
And
they're not talking about your
yeah.
erection. They're like, that looks difficult, right?
Yeah.
And they played Wish You Were Here. And it was like this moment where I was on the operating table and I had accepted my own death, right? I knew I was going to die. I was going to maybe wake up from this, but I would only be awake for maybe 2 days after this until I died. And all I could think about was how I had wished these people who had impacted my life were there just to be with me for one final goodbye, so that I could hug my friends and, like, tell them that I love them before I became something else, right? And there was a moment in that where I was just thinking about nothing about myself. My pain had gone away. It was on the back burner. You live with pain long enough, it just kind of becomes part of life.
Yeah.
But all I could think about was how I needed to be closer to these people and how I wanted to be with them, right? And how I wish that they had known what they had done for me. And I came out of it on the other end, and they ended up doing a surgery that saved my life during that surgery, unbeknownst to me for months. They did this surgery, and I woke up not in hospice care. I woke up in the ICU. They had me crucified on a table. It was sweet. They had, like, my arms, like, strapped down on this table and my head strapped down and my legs and everything, so I couldn't move at all.
To, like, not break stitches and stuff.
Yeah, well, they thought that I had asked them not to do the surgery because I wanted to die. Which, like, at that time I was like, I don't see a point in living if this is what's going to keep happening. But the surgery they did ended up saving my life. But I didn't know, so they kept me.
Shout out to whoever Sam's doctor was.
Yeah, it was great man. Great man. But I remember so vividly, even though I was on an insane amount of drugs, being on that metal table in the operating room, listening to Wish You Were Here, just weeping, not for me, but for the people that I loved, right? And coming out of that gave me this sense of, like, there are people in my life that I don't know if they know that I love them. Like, I tell my friends all the time now, like, hey, I love you. And I never said that before. I don't know why. I can't even put myself into my shoes beforehand, but, like, I mean, I've told you guys, hey, I love you.
It's my favorite way to end a phone
times.
call.
Yeah.
Even if it's with, like,
yeah.
someone I normally wouldn't say that to. Like, it's so weird, the responses people get from me, because I'm literally hanging up the phone with, like, someone I'm friends with, but they would never expect us to be, like, insanely close. I'm like, I love you. And
Yeah.
they're like, what? And I'm like, no, for real. Like, I really love you. And it's crazy
Yeah,
to
people
like,
think you misspoke or
Yeah,
something, and
it's
it's like, no, like, I want you to know, like, you're an important person in my life.
absolutely.
And, you know, recovering after that and realizing, okay, I might live, just being able to tell people in your life who aren't your family or, you know, your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, just like, hey, you know, I love you, was just this moment that was like, I've had my best friend since like 3rd grade, and I don't think I'd ever told him, hey, I love you, until after this. And I think being able to just do that, you know, not in like a weird sexual way or anything, but just really showing those people how important they are, that brought me so much joy when I came out the other side. And I
Yeah.
was able to be open with these people and be like, hey, you know, like if something happens tonight, like if I get struck by a car or have a brain aneurysm or whatever, like I love you. Just
Absolutely.
having that ability to just really be open with the people who are close and important to you. Like I'd never experienced that before. And then afterwards, it was like, I can't believe that I never did this. You
It
know?
is weird how little we tell the people who are important to us. that they
Yeah,
are,
yeah.